Okay, a very good morning, students, and a warm welcome to Mr. Choong Hui Ping. All right, I appreciate, I think there's students from Introduction to Computers class. I truly appreciate your presence today. So it's very nice to see Year 1 students joining this session as well, together with Year 2 and Year 3 students from the Information Security Management class. It is indeed a wonderful morning, and it's nice to see all the MIS students gathered this morning for this session on information security management. So please allow me to introduce our speaker, our guest speaker for this morning, Mr. Choong Hui Ping. He is he has graduated from Management Information Systems program from Faculty of Business and Management in 2018. And Mr. Choong Hui Ping is currently an IT executive at Pensia Electronics Sdn, which is a subsidiary of Panasonic Holdings Berhad. Mr. Choong Hui Ping has received silver medal in the 4th International Innovation Design and Articulation Competition, IDEA 2018, which was held in University Technology Mara Perlis. And he has also participated in delivering his idea in Falling Walls Lab in 2018, which was held at AIMST University. During his studies, he has delivered many talks, many sharing sessions, in fact, in my classes and as well as other lecturers' classes. So we appreciate his passion for sharing knowledge. So indeed, this is another sharing session that he's willing to do it for the students who are taking information security management. Now, for me, I think Mr. Choong Hui Ping has vast experience in handling concerns in regards to security, because he has actually shared with me some of his acquaintances, some of his experience during his work. So I am very happy to have him today so that he can share his experience as well as his knowledge with all the students Year 1, Year 2, and Year 3. All right, so I, on behalf of Faculty of Business and Management, AIMST University, I would like to welcome Mr. Choong Hui Ping to deliver his sharing with the students. So over to you, Mr. Choong Hui Ping.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kalai. Good morning, everyone. Now I will share screen for the slides. Okay. Okay. Now, before I start off my today's topic, I would like to share a story. Now, this is John. John is an IT executive from IT department who works for a company. Now, one sunny morning, John went to office for work, just like everyone else. He scanned into the building. He went to the pantry to get a coffee to start off his day. And just as he sit down at his desk, he received a call from the colleague that his computer is acting out weird. So he went to that user's place to check on his computer, but realized the computer was under a ransomware attack. And then the next he knew, all the other PC in the company got hit by a ransomware attack. And this is the time when John realized that his company is now under a cyber attack. And that it comes to today's topic, which is about IT security management. Now, for the current cybersecurity trend, COVID-19 pandemic has been a rough time since 2019 until now. And cybercrime was already on the rise, but hackers and cyber criminals have taken advantage of the fear and uncertainty of the pandemic that brought with it. And they are targeting business and consumers with a vengeance. And for instance, there are 238% rise in cyber attack on financial institutions like banks, and a 600% rise increased attacks on the cloud servers just from January to April of 2020 alone. Now, in PwC Global Digital Trust Insights 2021 survey of over 3,000 business and technology executives, it is clear that security leaders are working closer than ever with business teams to strengthen resilience in organizations. helping them not only detect threats, but also to recover from attacks and ensure business continuity. And the survey reports that 55% increase in security budgets, 51% increase in growing headcount, and 50% says that cybersecurity and privacy will be baked into every of their business decisions, and 72% said that they can strengthen cybersecurity posture while at the same time containing the cost. Now, the purpose of cybersecurity are fields and domains of processes, skills, technologies that help safeguard the computer system, networks, and databases of an organization from any destruction or threats, either man-made or natural. And cybersecurity also ensures the recovery of systems back in full functionality and operation capacity within a stipulated time to prevent losses. Now, there's a saying from the Sun Tzu Art of War, which is know yourself, know your enemy, and you will win. And for 100 battles, you will win out of 100 battles. And thus, knowing is half the battle. So you must know your foe. Here we will discuss about cyber threats. Now, hackers are individuals, are skilled and have advanced knowledge in the field of computing and information technology, be it software, hardware, networking, or etc. And you may think like, you may imagine that when you read about hackers on the news articles, that you think they're like Neo from the Matrix, from like what in the Hollywood movie shows you. But actually, that's not the truth. Hackers are just normal people like you and me, who are just experts who had in-depth knowledge about the technology. Now, there are 4 types of hackers. The first one is a black hats. The second one is white hats. The third one is script kiddies. And the fourth one is gray hats. Now, black hats is a hacker who breaks into a system or network with malicious intent. They just go in and they just do the destruction. Now, white hat is an ethical computer hacker or computer security expert who specializes in penetration testing that ensures the security of an organization information system. And script kiddies are unskilled individuals who use scripts or programs developed by others, such as the hackers, to attack computer systems and networks. These are amateurs who had no idea about how the computer system works. They had no in-depth knowledge on the computer system, but they will use whatever program they found on the internet. They download it and they use it. Even though this amateur attack is kind of like, you would see, not take it so seriously, but they attack, but the effect was quite devastating as well. Now, gray hats are computer hacker or computer security expert who may sometimes violate laws or typical ethical standards, but does not have the malicious intent typical of a black hat hacker. Now, here we will have a small activity called Guess the Hat. So I will show you a scenario. So all you guys here can unmute or type in the chat and then tell me, is this a white hat hacker, a gray hat hacker, or a black hat hacker? Now, this is the first scenario. James is a cybersecurity specialist that works in a cybersecurity firm. His job scope are to perform penetration testing on a client system, test out the client system for loopholes or backdoors, and reports back to the client with report on his pen test results and advise them what to improve upon their network, security, and infrastructure. So what kind of hacker is he?
White hat.
Okay. Other answers?
White hat.
White hat.
Okay. So final answer is white hat, yes?
Yeah, that's the final answer.
Yeah, correct. That is white hat. Okay, second scenario. Jim hacks an ATM machine of a certain bank and discover there is a vulnerability in the machine and successfully make the ATM withdraw out cash without even using a single bank card. He reports his finding to the bank management about this. So what hat is he?
Gray hat.
Okay.
Gray hat.
Okay. Any other answers?
I mean, he could be a white hat, depending on who paid him.
Okay, one white hat. So final answer?
I also think gray hat.
Gray hat. So final answer is gray hat?
Yeah, I think gray hat. Yeah.
Gray hat, huh?
Yeah. Gray hat.
Yeah. Answer is gray hat. Now, for those who answer he is a white hat, because as I said before, he violated a certain ethical standard. Here, as you can see, he hacks an ATM machine without the consent from the bank. So that's, but yet he did not blackmail the bank management or anything. He just reports his finding to the bank management. So he is considered a gray hat. Now, last scenario, Jericho performed a cyber attacks on vulnerable companies with ransomware and asked the victims to pay up, or else he will do more harm to their system if they do not comply. He also will leak all the confidential data he stole from the company and have plans to sell it to the highest bidder in the dark web. So what hat is he?
Black hat.
Black hat, is it?
Black hat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
black hat.
I think black hat. Yeah.
Final answer is black hat, is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, he is black hat. Okay, good. Everyone did good. Now here we have other hacking terms, which is hacktivist, cyber terrorist, vulnerability broker, and then state sponsored. Now hacktivists are gray hats that protest against different political ideas or social ideas. Usually they will deface government websites or DDoS a government online services to send out their political message. And the word hacktivist is a combination of hacker and activist. So you can already see that. Now, cyber terrorist, as the name already implied, is a terrorist, but was specialized in the cyber realm. Black hats that perform violent acts to achieve a political goal in the most extremist way in the cyber realm. Usually targets critical infrastructures of a country, such as a nuclear power plant or other power plant as well. Now, vulnerabilities broker is a gray hat who attempt to discover exploits and report them to vendors, sometimes for rewards or prizes. And lastly, state-sponsored, depending on whoever's perspective, they can be white hats or black hats. And they usually target at foreign governments, corporations, or terrorist groups. Usually this one, the state-sponsored are usually referred to the hackers that works for the government, usually for the military or the intelligence agency. So that's why it says depending on whoever's perspective. From the country they work for, of course, they are white hats, they are the good guys, but the one they attack, of course, see them as the black hats. They are the one who attack them. So depending on whoever's perspective. Now, there are many types of attack. Here we will discuss about zero-day attack, smishing, phishing, ransomware, DOS, DDoS, and then malwares. Now, zero-day attack is an exploitative attack on the vulnerabilities of software that have yet to be discovered or patched or fixed by the software creators. It occurs on the same day a weakness is discovered. And this zero-day attack is actually one of the latest current attack that was a trend in the cybersecurity. Now, phishing is a general term, a cybercrime that lure individuals into providing sensitive data such as banking and credit card details, password, and personal details by contacting a target through the use of email, telephone, or text messages which are sent by someone posing as a legitimate institution. And smishing is a method of phishing that uses text messages like SMS to lure a target into a false sense of security, into clicking a certain links that will steal sensitive information from the victims. This kind of attack, I think you guys may have received some of those suspicious SMS, or even on a news article, they also got mentioned about this. And then next is phishing or voice phishing, a method of phishing that uses phone calls to pose as a legitimate institution to lure a target into a false sense of security and recording a certain voice print of the victims to gain certain information. This is only happens, you will sometimes receive those scam calls. This is like one of those scam calls. The best measures to protect yourself is just to hang up the call. If you listen, if you already had the first tingling sense that something is wrong, just hang up the call. Now, malwares are a general term of malicious and unwanted programs that will do harm or disrupt the function and operation of the computers. And there are 5 types of malware, which are worms, virus, Trojan, spyware, and adware. Now, worm is a computer malware that self-replicates itself from a computer to computer that will eventually causes the system to be overloaded and crash. It does not need to attach itself to a software program in order to cause damage. And one of the most infamous computer worm is Stuxnet. Now, Stuxnet is a malicious computer worm that first uncovered in 2010, although it has been thought by the other security experts, cybersecurity experts, that it has been in development since at least 2005. The Stuxnet came into the spotlight is when it has attacked the Iranian nuclear facilities, and there are actually conspiracy theories thinking that this is possibly developed by the Americans because the target was the Iranian nuclear facility, but there are no concrete proof about that. But of course, it's just a conspiracy theory. And now it has since mutated and spread to other industrial and energy producing facilities. Now, a virus is a malware that are designed and programmed with malicious code that will do much damage when it has been activated according to the programming or code. And then Trojan is named after the Trojan horse from the Greek mythology of the Trojan War, a malware that poses itself as a legitimate software or attach itself to a legitimate software, like what the Trojan horse has did, that sneak in the Greek soldier into the Trojan wall, and that would do damage once it has infiltrated the system. Now, a spyware is an unwanted software that infiltrates your computing devices, stealing your internet usage data and sensitive information. An adware is a form of malware that hides on your devices and serves you in advertisements. Some adware also monitors your behavior online so it can target you with specific ads. But usually adware is more of a nuisance, but it also can hide a very serious threat because some of these advertisement links can actually link to further attacks, which is like a worm or virus, or even installing down a spyware and even Trojan. Now, denial of service, or DOS for short, is a type of attack on a service that disrupts its normal function and prevents other users from accessing it. The most common target for a DOS attack is an online service, such as a website. And though attacks can also be launched against a network's machines or even a single program. Now, distributed denial service, or DDoS for short, is a malicious attempt to disrupt the traffic of a target server and service or network by overwhelming the target of its or its surrounding infrastructure with a flood of internet traffic. Botnet are usually used during a DDoS attack. Now, a zombie is a computer connected to a network that has been compromised by a hacker, a virus, or a Trojan. And it can be used remotely for malicious attacks. And as mentioned in the previous slide, which is about botnet, a single computer that was infected by the virus in a botnet is called a zombie. Now, a botnet is a number of internet connected devices, each of which is running one or more bots. It is usually used to perform the distributed denial of service, steal data, send spam, and allow the attacker to access the device and its connection. And lastly, of course, ransomware, as the story that I mentioned at the start. Actually, that story was based on my real work-life experience. I was only working after I report for duty for 1 month. After 1 month, my company got hit by ransomware. It was also one of the most common and most famous way of attack. Now, ransomware is a form of malware that encrypts a victim's files. The attacker then demands a ransom from the victim to restore access to the data upon payment. And users are shown instructions for how to pay a fee to get the decryption key. And usually they will ask the payment by cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, etc. And usually we don't advise those people to pay them up because you never know. They won't like give you the decryption key, and they will actually attack you more because you're willing to pay up. Now, the effects of cybersecurity, which will causes data theft, identity theft, which through the phishing and smishing, as well as the vishing, and then data manipulation, some of the data will be manipulated. And then lastly, data losses, which all of these effects are very devastating to a company. Now, social engineering is a term used for a broad range of malicious activities accomplished through human interactions. This is also one of the ways hackers can also get into your system as well. And what we call like hacking the human instead. Instead of hacking the computer system, they hack the human. It uses psychological manipulation to trick the users into making security mistakes or giving away sensitive information. Now, there are a few social engineering techniques. Example is shoulder surfing, which is like someone is looking over your shoulder to see you key in your password. And then one is pretext contact. This is like the SMS smishing and vishing, which they call you on a pretext, poses themselves as some kind of legitimate institution like a bank or police enforcement agency. They contact you and then like they threaten you to get your information lah. And then is weak password. This one weak password is as mentioned before. And then is tailgating. This one is a method that the attacker will follow the target very closely when they walk through the door. If the door, they will just go into the secure building like that. And then next is honey trap. This one is most notable will be the most notable example I can give is the love scam. So the guys jangan gatai lah kalau tengok itu wanita yang cantik punya, don't believe it's real lah. The attack was also not just effective against boys but also girls as well. Please be careful online. So don't reveal any sensitive information to anyone online. And then it's scareware. This one is some kind like it's like an adware. It's a pop-up. It's a pop-up malware, but basically it doesn't do anything, but it just scares you into thinking that your computer system is compromised, like this screenshot here. And then in that scareware, in that ad, it has this contact number. This one is very famous for the tech support scam that was very active in India, that usually performs on the US, on the Western countries. Now we will look at the security concept, which is the CIA Triad. Now, what is the CIA Triad? CIA is an acronym for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, confidentiality principle asserts that only authorized parties can access the information and functions. Now, integrity principle asserts that the information and functions can be added, altered, or removed only by authorized people and means. And lastly, availability principle asserts that system functions and data must be available on demand according to the agreed upon parameters based on the level of service. Now, a few key security concepts, which is separation of duties, which certain people will hold certain roles and they will perform that specified duties that is designed for that role. Next is job rotation, which is, as the name already you can understand, job rotation. You rotate around the job role, you receive training, you train to do other people's work, the other will train to do your work, job rotation. And then mandatory vacations. This one is actually like the leave, the annual leave. This was actually to a psychological study as well, that people sometimes need to really take break. They cannot work all the time. People who really work all the time, they will eventually, of course, logically, you think that you will get tired. And then once you get tired, you will let down your guard. And then eventually the attack will happen. That the attackers will take advantage of that. Now, dual control is like two admin will be controlling two controls over one system. So they won't have like one system controlled by all. If one of the admin is like compromised, at least the others can take back control. And then is split knowledge. Not all admin will have all the knowledge, because if one is not, as said before, if one is compromised, the others can still save the situation. And then principle of least privilege. This one is like if you do not have the high level of clearance, you won't be able to get the information or the system you want to access. And then lastly is a need to know basis. Now, what are the security measures? We can implement access control, such as an RFID tag, the scan in and out of the building. We can install antivirus in every of the users' PC, the endpoint PCs. And then we have to set up the DMZ as well as the firewall. And then we can also use VPN or virtual private network. This is actually for those, especially since now, because of the pandemic, a lot of people has to work from home. They can actually use VPN to further secure their internet connections to connect into the intranet network of the company when they remote in to do their work. And the other is encryption. And then lastly is periodic backup. Now, encryption, there are two types of encryption, symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption. Here we'll look at symmetric encryption, a type of encryption where there is only one key, a secret key, is used to both encrypt and decrypt the electronic information. Now, asymmetric encryption is a type of encryption that uses two separate yet mathematically related keys to encrypt and decrypt data. The public key is used to encrypt the data, and while its corresponding private key decrypts the data. Now, of course, we must also have, we not just have security in the cyber realm, we must also have physical security, which is by installing CCTV coverage, build up gated barbed wire fences or electric fences perimeter, which is, I mentioned before about the access control, the RFID tag that can only access to certain areas. And about that access control for the cyber realm, of course, is the most easiest example is the admin password. Every of your Windows PC have admin and user password, right? The admin and user account, I'm sorry. Yeah, that is also one form of access control. And then another one is to install a man trap. Now, how this works is that the users, the authorized people will scan in the first door, and then they will go into a chamber. The door behind the people will then close up, and then it will then scan in another authorized card to pass through the chamber. If there is no authorized person, the person, this is actually a measure against the tailgating. If the tailgating person does not have the authorized, does not have the valid credentials, of course you will trap in this chamber. So that is what the man trap can do. And then we can, of course, employ security guards in the most extreme cases, of course, armed security guards as shown here. And this is the pictures of how a normal data centers on their physical security. Now, cloud computing is also one of the trends that many companies are now moving towards. That they are slowly slowly they are moving towards cloud computing. They're moving their entire system to cloud, be it large company, medium, or even small company as well. So this one is like extra knowledge that you should know about. So cloud computing is an on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data storage, like cloud storage and computing power without direct active management by the user. The term is generally used to describe data centers available to many users over the internet. Now, there are three types of cloud computing service, which is SaaS, software as a service, a software licensing and delivery method in which software is licensed on a subscription basis and is centrally hosted. IaaS, infrastructure as a service, a form of cloud computing that provides virtualized computing resources over the internet. PaaS, platform as a service, a type of cloud computing offering in which a service provider delivers a platform to clients, enable them to develop, run, and manage business applications without the need to build and maintain the infrastructure, such as software development processes typically required. And cloud computing can be deployed in three models, which is public cloud that offered by third-party providers, available to anyone over the public internet, and scales quickly and convenient. The second one is hybrid cloud, combined of both public and private cloud, shares security responsibility, helps maintain tighter controls over sensitive data and processes. And lastly is private cloud, offered to select users over the internet or a private internet network, provides a greater security control and requires traditional data center staffing and maintenance. Advantages, there are many advantages of using cloud computing. The first one is cheaper and it is easy to maintain. the cost of implementing cloud computing rather than build up an entire infrastructure is actually comparably cheaper lah. And next is scalability. What this means is that it is easily scaled to your business operation, to your business processes, be it big or small. It can be scaled. And then third one is easy to implement. And then the fourth one is can be accessed at any time, anywhere, as long as have internet connection, which compared to the physical infrastructure that we built up ourselves, we need to go to the office physically, then we can access. But through cloud, you can access from your home, you can access from anywhere as long as there's an internet connection. And the fifth one is, of course, security. Every of their cloud computing has very secure security. And lastly, safe spaces for other hardware and infrastructures. Now, in the case which, as I mentioned in my story before, in the case that unfortunately a disaster has struck, we must, of course, have disaster recovery. So first, we'll discuss about what is a disaster. A disaster is a sudden accident or natural catastrophe that causes great damage or loss of life. In this case, the disruption of organizations' daily operation and loss in revenues and profits due to disasters. Now, disasters can be classified into three categories, which are natural disaster, technological hazards, or human-caused threats. First, we will look at natural disasters, include acts of nature such as floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, epidemics or pandemics, which is the current COVID-19, landslides or volcano eruptions. And then next, we'll look at technological hazards, include accidents or failures of systems, structures such as pipeline, explosions, transportation accidents, utility disruptions, dam failures, and accidental hazardous material releases. And then lastly is human-caused threat, include intentional acts such as active or silent attacks, chemical or biological attacks, cyber attacks against data or infrastructure, and sabotage. The most notable, of course, is the hacker attack like the ransomware. Now here we'll look at the 5 mission areas of preparedness measure, which are prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and lastly, recovery. Prevention. Prevention is the action taken to prevent a threatened or actual incident from occurring. You prevent it from happening. The capabilities necessary to avoid, deter, or even stop an imminent crime or threaten or actual mass casualty incident. Next, we'll look at protection. Protection focuses on ongoing actions that protect the people from property from a threat or hazard. Now, the capabilities to secure against acts of violence and man-made or natural disasters. Last is mitigation. You mitigate, you reduce the losses. The capabilities necessary to eliminate or reduce the loss of life and property damage by lessening the impact of an event or emergency. It also means reducing the likelihood that the threats and hazards will happen again. And then is response. You respond to the emergency, to the disaster. A capability necessary to stabilize in emergency once it has already happened or is certain to happen in an unpreventable way. And lastly, of course, recovery. The capability necessary to assist in restoring back to normal operations after the disaster. So what is disaster recovery? It involves a set of policies, tools, and procedures to enable the recovery or continuation of vital technology, infrastructure, and systems following a natural or human-induced disaster. It focuses on the IT or technology systems supporting critical business functions as opposed to business continuity, which involves keeping all essential aspects of a business functioning despite significant disruptive events. And thus, disaster recovery can therefore be considered as a subset of business continuity. Now here for every disaster recovery, we have RTO and RPO. RTO shorts for Recovery Time Objective and Recovery Point Objective, RPO. Now, RPO is a measure of maximum tolerable amount of data that the business can afford to lose during a disaster. It also helps you to measure how long it can take between the last data backup and a disaster without seriously damaging your business. RPO is useful for determining how often to perform your data backup. And usually it focuses on the question is which point of the data will be restored after the disaster struck and what is the interval of backup of data. An example would be data must be recovered back to 2 hours ago or 30 minutes ago, etc. Now, RTO is a metric that defines the time to recover your infrastructure and services following a disaster to ensure business continuity. Focuses on the question on how long a system will be back in operation after the system has been down. Example, 4 hours to be back online, and that is actually CIMB Bank's RTO time. One of the vendor also shared this knowledge to me. Now, principles of backup site. A backup site or work area recovery site is a location where an organization can relocate to following a disaster, such as fire, flood, terrorist threat, or other disruptive event. This is an integral part of the disaster recovery plan and wider business continuity planning of an organization. Now, alternate sites is refer to a site where people and the equipment that they need to work is relocated for a period of time until the normal production environment, whether reconstituted or replaced, is available. Now, there are 3 types of backup sites: cold site, warm site, and hot site. A cold site is just a mere empty operational space with basic facilities like raised floor, air conditioning, power, and communication line. It is the least expensive type of backup site for an organization to operate. Now, warm site is a compromise between hot and cold site. These sites will have hardware and connectivity already established through a smaller scale than the original production site or even a hot site. And it might have backups on hand, but they may not be complete or maybe between several days and a week old. It is a hot site is a duplicate of the original site of the organization with full computer system as well as a near complete backup of user data. Now here we will compare the advantages and disadvantages of cold site, warm site, and hot site. Now, cold site, the advantages, of course, as mentioned before, least expensive and provide an existing space for setup. But the disadvantage, of course, nothing has actually is inside. It's a cold site. Nothing is in there, including the hardware and even the connection, internet connection, or even the power cable. And it also does not include backup copies of data and information from the original location of the organization. Now, warm site have the characteristic of both cold site and hot site. Equipment connections have already been set up, and it also included copies of data and information from the original organization. Now, the disadvantage, of course, is the backup copies of data, as mentioned before previously in the slide, that it is not up to date. And the recovery will be delayed while the backup tapes will be delivered to the warm site. And lastly, hot site. It is full setup, real-time synchronization between the backup site and the original site, full computer system, as well as near complete backup of the user data and fast recovery. But the disadvantage, of course, it is very expensive to set up. Next, we'll look at the DRaaS, Disaster Recovery as a Service. Now, disaster recovery as a service is an arrangement with a third party, a vendor, commonly offered by a service provider as a part of their service portfolio. And disaster recovery is not a product, it's a service. Even though several large hardware vendors have developed mobile modular offerings that can be installed and made operational in a very short time. Thus, they are typically using modular data center. Now, modular data center is a portable method of deploying data center capacity. A modular data center can be placed anywhere data capacity is needed, and it consists of purpose-engineered modules and components to offer scalable data center capacity with multiple power and cooling options. Modules can be shipped to be added, integrated, or retrofitted into an existing data center or combined into system or module. It is typically consists of standardized components. Now, there are 2 types of modular data center, portable and prefabricated. Now, portable data center solution built into a standard 20, 40, or 53-foot intermodular container, which is known as a shipping container, as shown in this picture here. This one was developed by the IBM. And IBM states that the portable modular data center costs 30% less to design and build than traditional data center with cooling equipment. And it is loaded with computer equipment which can be transported using traditional shipping method. And it also weather resistant and insulated, can be placed in environments, extreme environments like tundra or the desert. Now, prefab modular data center, it fits data center equipment into a facility composed of prefabricated components that can be quickly built on a site and added to as a capacity is needed. Now, HP version of this type of modular data center is constructed on a sheet metal components that are formed into 4 data center halls linked by a central operating building. Now, here is the notable vendors of the DR AAS: Axiom, Google, Huawei, Cisco, IBM, HP, and Schneider Electric. And another one is, I think I forgot, I have to check there. Now, here I will live demo on a hacking method lah. So what am I going to use is a Kali Pi 4. The OS is Kali Linux, as shown in this picture. This is actually myself. I built this mini computer, mini hacking station lah. This is the components: a 5-inch touchscreen, and then with a U100 UPS headboard, and I use the Raspberry Pi 4 mainboard, the mini credit card size computer, and it has a SATA M.2 SSD shield, which, in other words, you can install an SATA 3 SSD, M.2 SSD in that in this PC, and it has a 3.7 volt 2000 milliamp lithium battery. And then I will use a VNC viewer to remote into this hacking station to demonstrate about proxy chains, hashtags, and aircraft NG.